June 24th, Stearns County Board of Commissioners to order. Randy will do the roll call.
Commissioner Notch. Here. Commissioner Carr.
Here.
Mr. Bertram.
Here.
Mr. Forrest vacant, and Mr. Persky is not attending.
Thank you. What we'll do now is we'll rise for the moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we'll got the agenda in front of us. If there's no changes, Mike, any additions or?
No changes recommended, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So motion would be in order to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Commissioner Notch, second by Commissioner Clark to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The consent agenda has 20 items on it. Anybody want to pull anything from that, or a motion would be in order to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Clark, second by Commissioner Notch to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. We'll recess the regular meeting and we'll go into the health, or the Human Services Board items. Melissa Huberty and team. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Melissa Huberty. I am the Human Services Administrator. And there's one board item on the Human Services regular board item agenda today, and it is G1 on page 78. I have with me today Janet Gologowski, who's the Human Services Director over Public Health, Steve Vincent, who is a community member on the Community Health Board Task Force, and Mike Matnich, who is the Supervisor in Public Health as well. So community health boards and healthcare systems are mandated to complete a community health improvement plan every 3 or 5 years. This is a collaborative effort between Stearns, Sherburne, Benton, and CentraCare Health System. And when we work together, we call that partnership the Central Minnesota Alliance. And the purpose of this alliance is to gather information, scan the environment, meet with community members, and come up with a community health plan and determine what our health needs are in Stearns County specifically. So today we're going to present where we're at in that process, the information that we have learned from the community and our surveying of the environment and all the activities that we're engaged in. So the action required today for the board is to approve the submission. This is a mandated submission to the Minnesota Department of Health of our 2025 through 2028 Community Health Improvement Plan to the Department of Health. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Gologowski to start us off.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Will you give me the next slide, please? Thank you. All right, so this was our community CMA, our Central Minnesota Alliance pictograph of who's all involved. Sherburne County, Benton County, CentraCare, and ourselves in Stearns County.
Excuse me, you might want to pull the mic a little closer to you. It's a little faint. You have such good information to share, we want to make sure we hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Is that close enough?
That's better.
My mic is wobbly.
Well, luckily it's a mic, Janet.
So these are the partners for the Central Minnesota Alliance. We work together in a loose collaborative to make sure this product happens. So could you give me the next slide again too, please? Perfect. All right. So this is our internal structure. You don't need to memorize this. We just wanted to make sure that folks know we have a fairly formal structure in how we go about gathering information. If we start from the bottom, the community context group really takes into account different kinds of things that are happening in our physical environment, our built environment, the culture, our assets, strengths. We work with a lot of community partners to take this into account. The status assessment group really is about data, gathering the data that we need to see what's happening in our community, analyze that data, and then look for those top priorities, which you'll learn more about here in a minute. And then our partner assessment work is really the work that we do in combination with many of our community partners. That can be businesses, that's ourselves as colleagues, that's different school districts. We work all over, aging, all sorts of partners. You name it, we're with them. And then where the information from those three groups is assessed in that leadership group and our process managers group, as Melissa had described, so that we're making sure that we're moving this forward in a way that makes sense. Next. Here's a little bit of our July 23 to June of 2025 work plan that you approved 3 years ago. So we have a 3-year cycle here, and what we do is we start to meet. We're looking at, we launched an electronic county community health survey in 3 different languages. We assessed that data. We had lots of meetings with that. We developed goals and actions. And we're now here before you today to not only show you the work that we did, but again, ask to approve our 25 to 28 work plan. All right. So these are the top 3 priorities that continue to weave their way through our communities and our entire region: community connection, stability, and access. Those are the 3 areas that our community is mostly concerned about. Making sure that we have access, which, as you know, telehealth increases access. There continue to be rural challenges, though, with health disparities, with transportation, with the ability for insurance to cover preventative care, which of course we want to do. Community stability, really underneath that umbrella are these ideas of that childcare has reached a pinnacle here, where we all know it's hard to find, it's really expensive, and we need to be able to have childcare. We need to have stable housing. We need to have access to food so that we don't have food insecurity. And also we need to make sure we have a good workforce development, good jobs, livable wages, and ability to then meet those other needs. And then community connection, we know through research more and more we're talking about things like isolation being a concern, especially in our aging population. And unfortunately in Stearns County, we're all getting just a little bit older. We want to make sure that we have belonging, that people have a sense of that belonging, they know where they matter and to whom they matter. And substance use and substance abuse prevention is also something that has become very, very much highlighted for our communities. So, and now I'm going to turn it over to both Steve and Mike to describe what our processes were looking like.
Welcome. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner and Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Steve Vincent, and I'm a member of the Public Health Task Force, and I was invited to help present this, so it's my pleasure to be here.
I also understand that you're a resident of Commissioner Clark's district, so a special welcome to you. Because that means you had to drive a long way to get there.
Took me quite a while, but almost as long to drive as it took to walk from the parking place into the building. Fortunate to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you. So this has been, what we're talking about today has been a 3-year process, as Janet said. It started back in 2023 with a number of focus groups gathering information about the perceived needs of the community. And then in 2024, we actually conducted a very comprehensive community assessment, again, working with partners, but also opening up the assessment process to every resident of the county who could go online and fill out an assessment telling us what they thought their needs were and our county's needs were for health improvement within the community. And then since the fall of 2024, the leadership team of the Central Minnesota Alliance has been working with that data to develop the Community Health Improvement Plan that is being presented today for submission. So it's been a thorough process. Back on an earlier slide, you might have noticed that it's a process that isn't just off the top of the desk here. It's developed by an association of county and city health, public health people across the nation with a specific process for doing this. So it's a well thought out, well organized process for coming up with a community health improvement plan. The other thing, if I might just kind of as an aside for a moment, back in my work career before I retired, I worked for originally St. Cloud Hospital, and then when it became CentraCare. And I often thought to myself, I don't understand why we don't know more about what's going on in public health. We spend a lot of time treating people, seeing people in clinics, in the hospital, trying to take care of people, but we didn't know that much, and I didn't understand why. So it really wasn't until after I retired that the Central Minnesota Alliance came into being, but I think this is an incredibly exciting fact that Stearns County, Benton County, Sherburne County, and the major health system of the area, the CentraCare system, are working collaboratively on this effort, because it's not typical. As far as I know, it's unique within the state of Minnesota, and it leverages the assets of all four partners to improve the health of the community in ways that don't typically happen around the state. I think probably don't typically happen around the nation. So it's exciting in that respect to me. So a previous slide shows that we came up with 3 priorities. I say we, the group of people, the leadership team of the Alliance, and with all the input that was gathered, came up with 3 priorities for this health improvement plan, and community connection is the first of these. And specifically in community connection, we're trying to reduce the sense of isolation that people may experience, probably exacerbated a lot by what we all went through with the pandemic, and perhaps exacerbated by how we coped with that pandemic by doing a lot more remote work, a lot more telecommunication, and maybe less face-to-face contact. But isolation is well known to be an impediment to health. And so we want to reduce isolation and thereby improve the mental well-being of all the members of the community and reduce the risk for substance abuse. So that's the focus of community connection. And then, Mike?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'd just like to add the pictures that you see
You
in
want to
front of you.
state your name just officially for the record?
Mike Matnich, Public Health Supervisor.
Thank you.
Just to provide a little context related to the pictures in front of you, the first one, upper left corner, is an example of a collaboration between our Youth Service Task Force and some of our public health staff getting into the schools and actually having conversations with kids related to what are they grateful for, kind of that social belonging connected piece. The next picture is our outreach staff at the Place of Hope, just kind of working with people there and their needs. Top right is our opioid advisory committee. At the beginning, coming together, prioritizing what groups, what topics in the community we want to work on. Bottom left is, again, students in the school setting, kind of providing input on belonging and connectedness. Middle bottom is our mobile vehicle out in the community, working at Haas Park to engage the community, what creates health. And then the bottom right is an example of one of our grantees of opioid funding, the Violent Offenders Task Force. Nate Stewart is there actually demoing a piece of equipment that they use in the field to keep everybody safe. When they find a substance out there, they're able to test it very quick and make a determination and make things happen. So again, just wanted to provide a little context on that.
On that point, if I can, that mobile unit, how well used is that and how, like what events, and I assume across the county?
Yes, it's actually used, I mean, several times a month. It's out in the field actually doing education at different drop-in locations, and actually it's then used at larger events. Like we've used it at Summertime by George in the past. We've used it at event around Lake George, around Cairo. Use at Pride and lots of different events. So it's right now, I would say typically it's used weekly. You know, so, well, 2 weeks ago, I think we had 3 events at the same time. So it was at one event, and we actually had staff physically tabling at other events. So
Part of that, if I can interrupt really quick, part of our Central Minnesota Alliance, our partnership, is that when we have different events spread throughout all of our counties or CentraCare, we'll call each other and say, what do you have available? What staff do you have available? What resources do you have available? What vehicles like the van do you have available? And we will use them all together to try to make sure we're at as many events as we possibly can be. In addition, the mobile van is also used to make sure that we can meet our mobile WIC neighborhood clinic needs. And that's kind of a new project that we can talk about at another time if you wish.
And as I always share, don't forget Western Stearns County.
Correct. Our mobile medical van, not mobile medical, that's the other folks. Our van, really, we go to Paynesville, Sauk Center, and Melrose. We hit those communities. They've asked for that. It's not just us going in. So that's been in collaboration with our folks. So we're excited about it, and thank you for asking about that, because it gives us an opportunity to help shine that up a little bit more.
And if there's events you're looking for, Steve and I certainly could help connect you with some things that might fit if you're looking for invitations or events that you could attend.
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Ask us.
Yes, yes. I think we do neighborhood clinic in Paynesville as well, don't we?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, we are in Paynesville.
So hopefully that would be some wonderful connections if we could do that.
Thank you.
And so the second priority developed out of this plan is community stability, and this means specifically, as we're talking about this, housing stability, food security, access to good childcare, and financial security. So we already run a number of programs that are aimed at this sort of thing, including the WIC program, for example. But part of this plan that is being presented today is to explore the idea of developing family resource centers that could be located throughout the county and give families a place to come to get access to information and support for accessing what they need for housing security, nutrition security, financial security. And this is so important to public health because it was just exposed to some information over the weekend about how food insecurity is linked probabilistically to child abuse and neglect. So, you know, the connections between all of these things are just incredibly strong and incredibly important to be able to address. So community stability is the second priority in this plan. And then, Mike, the third priority is access, ensuring that there is access to the services. And we mean the preventive services that public health provides, as well as the healthcare treatment and diagnosis services that CentraCare provides. And so we're interested in the location of the services, transportation to the services, and having insurance coverage that will allow you to actually access the services once you get there. So we're, in this plan, going to be looking at how we improve that, develop the use of the mobile van, for example, to get that services to people. So those are the...
Mr. Chair,
yes.
Commissioners, just want to point out the picture on the far left is Western Stearns County. Our nursing staff actually out there giving vaccinations at some large farms out there, actually, with some of the community. So the upper picture and the lower picture are just that, what you talked about before, is us getting out, using that vehicle, doing those services. So I just wanted to...
Thank you.
No, you go ahead.
So my wobbly mic and I are back. This plan that we have proposed to you today is used in collaboration, as we have just shown, with our community partners. We use it to help everyone have access to be able to set priorities, coordinate actions, and target resources together. And again, you saw some of those examples, what we did throughout 23 to 25. 25 to 28, as indicated by both Mike and Steve, we're looking at activities specifically to each of these areas. I would draw your attention to the tree in the middle community stability. We are actively engaged right now in an Explore and Assess grant to look at what a family resource center or centers might mean to Stearns County. The difference between what we do and what family resource centers would do is that family resource centers are parent-led. They're community parents getting together in their area and deciding as parents with their community leadership what they need. And so they design what is at each center themselves. And so our resource grant that we're looking at for this will help pull all of this data together, and there's a lot of data. And then we will be, at some point in the future, talking specifically about what did we find out with those family resource centers with that Explore and Assess phase? What might these look like? Which communities may wish to participate and be early adopters? So we are in that Explore and Assess phase. Part of the data that we get from doing this community work helps guide us towards those kinds of developments. We're also looking at promoting prevention and making sure that we have different educational campaigns. Why is your health important to you? It's more than a vaccination. It's more than an immunization. It's where you live. It's access to your care. It's how connected you are to others. It's how important do you feel in those connections? Do you matter? And when you matter, you flourish. And so in addition to that, back to the other first community connection square that you see in the green, we're really looking at moving the needle towards prevention. We all know proving the negative is very difficult. So that's part of what we're trying to do here too, is measure that prevention to see, can we move the needle on stability and access? Presumably, as Steve Vincent indicated, probabilistically, that should happen, and that's what these plans are there for, to continue to assess that. Oh, you did, thank you. So our long-term expected impacts over these consecutive, continuous, rolling 3-year community health improvement plans is that we will create those stronger social networks, that we will increase the life satisfaction and quality of life, not only in Stearns, but our regional partners, that we will have and we will see expanded economic opportunities, participation in community and civic life that again lends itself towards belonging and away from isolation. We want to increase the use of prevention services, earlier diagnoses, earlier treatment. When we do those things together, and when we're all pulling in the same direction, we all do better. That's the goal here. So our 2025-2028 Central Minnesota CMA Community Health Improvement Plan full report is available upon request. The full report is approximately 180 pages, and it includes examples of everything that we hit the highlights of here. All our surveys, all the data, everything is there, and we certainly can make that available to you. And do you have questions?
Yeah, with that, we have time for questions, and also then the action we're asking of the board today is to consider approval of our the submission of our 2025-2028 Community Health Improvement Plan to the Minnesota Department of Health.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Notch, do you have any questions or comments?
No, it sounds like this is a good collaboration, and look forward to the outcomes. Hopefully we see a lot of positive outcomes from this opportunity.
Yeah.
Commissioner Clark?
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very much appreciate all of the work going into this and also really looking at strategies for moving upstream, which I know can be really hard when we have so many other pieces. I'm wondering, I'm excited about the Family Resource Center possibility, as well as the data dashboard. I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit, because I know that you're looking at some pretty exciting things, and it will be great when we, but also the community can access that.
So as part of our 28 plan, that is in one of those categories. It's the community, I believe it's in the community, stability, yep. So that we have an interactive dashboard, which is much different than putting out flat data. And so as our Central Minnesota Alliance works together and we all try to bring that to fruition, there's also, each of us as counties are also developing ways to do an interactive dashboard for a deeper dive in each of our counties. So we have a kind of a regional global umbrella data dashboard, as well as a way to really dig deep into each of your own entities. As you know, CentraCare covers many more geographies than any of the counties, so it's really super helpful to have that larger sort of sense of what we're doing in multiple counties, and then we also cross counties, as we all know. So we are definitely working on that, and we should be able to get something to you within, not the next 3 years, but samples of that coming up soon.
And Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Clark?
the reason why I was bringing it up is it will help the community initiative, but also our leadership and this board make good data evidence-based decisions too, at least to the extent we can, but the interactive feature sounds great. Thank you.
Was your 23-25 plan, was that the first plan, or was there plans before that? So how have the plans changed, if at all? You know, because this is a mandated plan, so people love to cut and paste. I would assume over the years, I hope you tweaked it and personalized it based on experiences, but how many plans have you done, and what would you say was that evolution of the first plan to this plan?
The number of plans, I can't recall right off the top of my head. Because do you have
Mr. Chair,
plans?
Commissioner, I believe this was mandated starting in 1976,
Oh, there you
wasn't
go,
it?
yes.
So I was 5 years old when we did the first one.
I'm not gonna tell you how old I was.
They have changed incredibly. And so for that, oftentimes, and many folks who are mandated to do this will send out a survey, they'll get information back, and they'll do their report based on that. This has become much more robust and sophisticated and incredibly nuanced. This last cycle is the first cycle where we were actually able to open up to community members, other task force members, residents, business partners. I believe commissioners also attended. Commissioner Clark, you were there for a little bit of time. So this has become incredibly nuanced and sophisticated in terms of what we're reporting and how we're gathering data. It used to be sort of a flat line, send the data out, send a survey out, get some information back. You know, it was somewhere in the range of 8 to 13 pages, and people would half fill it out. We'd get back, this is stupid, written across surveys, and you know, you can't, you know, that's not data. So we've gotten much more interactive and much more connected to not only our data, but what national data might say about us as well. So we're digging deeper into all of our data, not just our surveys. We use the health trending, health, is that what the HTAC? Do you have the?
HTAC, that's the hospital-based data that's provided out of their electronic medical record system.
So we try to use all sorts of data, anecdotal, narrative. We do surveys when we're out in the community. As you saw in the pictures, we're not just out there, we're out there also gathering data, having conversations with people, and that's very different. So this next cycle, we're hoping to get even more robust, like with the interactive data dashboard that takes it off of paper and out of groups and into something that might be a little bit more forecastable, something that anyone has an opportunity to look at to make those decisions to help target those resources, to be better users of our resources, but also to help other communities become leaders in their own rights about what they wish to have happen. And then we connect and build those bridges. So that's a great question, because it has gone from paper to something that we hope to become super interactive.
Yeah.
And then my last question, or go ahead, Mr. Vincent.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I don't mean to interrupt, but I believe that the plan that you asked about, the current plan that is ending now, is the first, and Melissa and Janet might correct me if I'm wrong about, it's the first plan that was developed with the Central Minnesota Alliance, the partnership between the counties and Centricare. And Mike just alluded to one of the benefits of that collaborative, which is that now there's access to data that is available through the Centricare system, through all of its reporting to Medicare and the Centers for Disease Control, all of those kinds of reportings that in all the previous iterations of community health improvement plans, there wouldn't have been that kind of access. And that's why I was trying to say earlier, I find it so, well, just exciting that this kind of collaborative work takes together all of the public health agencies as well as the major healthcare provider. It allows us to do things that we weren't able to do before. And just speaking as a citizen, I just feel, grateful to the leadership of the county and the partner counties and Centricare that they've been willing to come together like this, because as I said, I'm pretty certain this is unique in the entire state, and it may be unique across the nation, where public health agencies and a major healthcare provider collaborate, share information, and share resources in ways that just doesn't happen. It's great, so thank you.
And as Centricare has grown throughout the region, certainly that information, and it's not just Centricare in St. Cloud, it's obviously they've grown in such a large area that's extremely important.
Exactly.
Correct. Yeah.
And my last question is, so how do you use the plan regularly, and how do you oversee it? Because plans are great, they're done, it's a mandated plan, you put it on the shelf, and sometimes people have the tendency not to pull it off the shelf and follow it and check in weekly or monthly or whatever. So how do you oversee it? How do you use it?
That's a great question, and that's a big lift. And that's why we need our regional partners, including our health system, to help us with that, because no one entity can just say, hey, send me your numbers. So in other words, a little bit of this is not only how do we use it, but how do we measure it? So what we all do is we meet in that leadership organizational structure. We're meeting and constantly updating a central plan with the activities we've done, the reasons why we do it. We talk about and make decisions about where does this fit in, what are you doing, where are you doing it, what's happening in your community. And we synthesize that data and we make sure it's there. We rely on each other. We go to each other's meetings, not all of them, but some of them. We describe ourselves as Central Minnesota Alliance at different community entities, for instance, and we become we have a little bit of a consulting role, if you will, like with, for instance, maybe a Council on Aging or Whitney Center, where our activities help enhance the work they do, the plans and responsibilities that they have, then we have access to that data again. So all that data dumps into our plan. And one of the things that we do then is we say, okay, how can we help our community know what we're doing? And that's the data dashboard. That's the interactivity here. Because you're right, lots of times these plans get written every 5 years. You bring it out, you dust it off, you do a copy paste, you add a few numbers and you send it in. This is very active. This happens all the time. We do a mapping process where we have those partner assessments. And so our timeline continues to be more and more robust. In the community, one of the things we do is we make sure that things like our neighborhood WIC, that we're making sure we have those opportunities, those numbers, that we're out there meeting people, and we can reflect back to communities, this is what's happening. You've asked for WIC clinics for your community members to be in your community. We can do that. and it lends itself to that long-term program. I think Mike is the supervisor of our community engagement folks, and he probably has some really good examples of why this is important and what we do to make sure this plan is always actionable. It's always a living document.
The group has really worked hard to prioritize in each of those areas and have a starting point. So if you pulled out that 180-page document, you would see for each of those areas in those activities, we triangulated and kind of came together with what the findings were and came up with some starting points. We did not map out all those things, as Janet said. It's a living process, and so we're looking at what are those needs we identify in our community over the next 3 years as well, and we'll incorporate that in there. But some good examples would be our opiate advisory committee type work, and even more St. Cloud and multi-county group that's meeting, looking at those things. Is there a need for a substance use coalition? So it's not just about opioids, but all the stuff together. But having that joint presence at activities out in the community is really one of those big initiatives we have right now. So boots on the ground type work.
Commissioner Clark, I'm going to ask Commissioner Notch, by the way, to read that 180-page report, and then he can report back at the next meeting. Thank you, Commissioner
I was
Notch.
up half the night last night.
Thank you for doing that, Commissioner Notch. Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, as you were talking, I think a couple ways that were unique, and if you could just expound on it. You know, one, we sometimes talk about how St. Cloud's in 3 counties, almost all of which is in Stearns, but there are 2 other counties that have a tiny bit of it. And you got kind of that broader area. And Commissioner Bertram, you brought this up. Very importantly, we've got a rather large geography of many rural communities and townships. And so in some places, they can be very, it still doesn't seem like we're a big city, so I can't say that, center focused. And in other places, they're really only rural focused, or one gets neglected. That's not, my experience has been that's not the case here. Can you talk a little bit, maybe a bit more about how this plan helps make sure that we really are looking at those strategies? And I know the FRC might even be a good example. Could you just talk a little bit about that? Because that's really important to all of us, regardless of where we live, that we're not just paying attention to any one place or group of people.
I think that is a little bit of what this community health improvement plan does help us do. We're able to write a plan that is regionally attentive, and yet we can focus very specifically on the areas that we know, especially are wishing for more of those kinds of services. Family resource centers are a strategy. They're community-led. They're the parent advocacy groups are the ones that are in touch with their community. They live in their communities. They're talking with their communities. They're receiving services themselves, and they have that fluidity to change with the communities. So that is one strategy. Another strategy for this also to assure rural health challenges are being met is that partnership that we have with CentraCare. My counterpart here in this adventure is Danny Prodovinsky at CentraCare. She runs the Community Health Improvement Program, and there are major partners. So when it comes to CentraCare and why this is a really great partnership is that the health system actually has multiple hospitals throughout Stearns County. And she presents this to each hospital, and each individual hospital board has to approve the plan. So when she's talking to Melrose, she's doing what I'm doing, the umbrella information, but focusing very much on what is happening in that Melrose community. And so that's replicable. And the strategy becomes that while we're all in this together, what you do here today is really important. And we feed that upstream. And we're not looking back and trying to fix old things. We're looking forward and trying to say, how do we get into communities? Family resources is one. Working with our healthcare systems is another strategy. Making sure that we are doing immunization clinics in the field. It could be at farms. It could be at different church sites have often allowed us to do vaccinations and immunizations there. We keep a pulse on what's happening in many of our businesses. We have a tri-wellness committee where businesses can ask for assistance about, hey, what do we do with this particular piece? This is the health that we're looking at. What do we do with this? There's some sanitation kinds of things that happen at different buildings. There's the health and welfare of workers. Those are all strategies that keep us moving forward to make sure that the communities that our people live in are healthy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, are you looking for a motion?
I think a motion would be in order.
Okay, thank you. I will be happy to move approval of the 25-28 Community Health Improvement Plan for submission to the Department of Public Health, or Health, sorry, Minnesota Department of Health.
Perfect, just the motion we needed. And Commissioner Notch looks like he really wants a second. So I'll give a second.
Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
I just want to thank the staff and especially people like you, Mr. Vincent, your expertise as a community member, all of our community representatives on all the different boards we have. It's really critical, and you're obviously engaged and informed, and that's very helpful. So thank you.
Thank you.
So motion's been made and seconded. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll close the Health and the Human Services part, and we'll reconvene the regular board meeting. Next up is Public Works. Jody Teich. We're all waiting for the power line discussion.
Good morning. Yes, my first item, J1, is on page 92 of your agenda packets, and it makes me once again the bearer of bad news. This is, excuse me, I'm asking the board to approve a Great River Energy transmission pole relocation agreement, and this is necessary for SP 073-602-050, and that's our County Road 2 reconstruction between the Sauk River and County Road 165, just south of Cold Spring. As I'm sure you all recall, you've approved numerous agreements with Xcel Energy to relocate their transmission and distribution lines that were on private easement before our project. They were just outside of that 33-foot existing permanent easement that we had. We have since widened that right-of-way to 50 feet each side of center line, and we need these poles to, at the very least, be outside of our recovery area for safety purposes. This is one pole. It's an H-style pole owned by Great River Energy. In this case, it's not just because it would be within that recovery area, it would actually be within the shoulder of a realigned curve at County Road 165. The estimated cost for this is $242,839.82. I will say we've had much smaller dollar amount agreements with Great River Energy in the past. You pay that estimated cost up front, and recently we had a $25,000 estimate, and they sent us a check for over $10,000 back. That was granted to lower a pole. It was not replacing a pole. So they did send us money back. The engineering was cheaper. The actual work and materials were less than what they estimated. So I'm hoping that that's the case with this agreement. This final agreement brings our total utility relocation costs on this project to over $4 million. So yes, it pains me to ask the board, but again, if we want to reconstruct this roadway, we really have no options. They don't let us shop around for costs on this. So I'm asking the board to approve that relocation agreement with Great River Energy.
Commissioner Clark?
I'll move it.
Anything?
I'll move it with a comment.
Please, I can't wait.
I will second it with a
Okay,
comment.
motion's been made and seconded. Commissioner Notch.
The thing I will say, having experience too with Great River Energy, which is owned by 27 co-ops, is you're going to find, their mission is not for profit, but basically to cover their expenses. So as Jody has indicated, I would say they're probably very reasonable in their cost structure. Not saying it's perfect, but.
Thank you for trying to make that feel better, Commissioner Notch. I get to a point
It's a lot
where
smaller dollar than the previous one.
when issues get this bad, I just stop talking about them or thinking about them, so that's where I'm at. I'm not gonna say a word. So a motion's been made and seconded to
Mr.
approve. Commissioner Clark.
Sorry, I said with a comment. I appreciate what you just said, Commissioner Notch, and I absolutely know we're never going to do this because it would make it less safe, but there is a small part of me that says, can't we just go around them and do something like really crazy, because this has just gotten to be so expensive. And I probably share every thought that is in Commissioner Bertram's head, so I will leave it at that.
And some of what I think I can't say in public, so that's part of it too. But
Yeah.
I will say it in the back room after the meeting if you want to hear it. And then we did have meetings to talk about avoiding this, you know, that getting them out of the right of way, or, you know, that we're not exposed to this. And of course, that's ongoing. So motion's been made and seconded. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's approved.
My next item is a little bit easier. Item J2 starts on page 98 of your agenda packets. And as I do every year, I'm asking the board to approve the updated 2026 to 2030 5-year road improvement program. This year, we debated going with a 10-year list, and instead we decided it was better just to put a list of those projects that are on a waiting list and can't fiscally fit into our 5-year program. They won't even fit, even if I did a 6-year program, they wouldn't all fit in a 6th year. So we will be spreading this out. It does demonstrate the need for us to continually go out and try to secure outside revenues. And while I realize those outside revenues are also taxpayer dollars, they are taxpayer dollars that have been allocated for this purpose, different federal funding sources. And so if we don't take them, somebody else will. So we do, at the Highway Department, try our best to leverage those outside funds from federal or state resources to supplement our existing revenues at the county level. This program does assume we're going to be borrowing ahead a little bit every year and get back to not borrowing ahead on our state aid. And I'll just make that pitch one more time, that borrowing ahead on our state aid dollars, it's an interest-free loan of our future money. So I'm asking the board to approve this program. I do know, I should also point out that Commissioners Bertram and Notch were contacted by at least one individual who was concerned about County Road 198 reconstruction getting pushed back. I did talk with the supervisor in that district, and we did a little bit of rearranging with some resurfacing projects in that same general vicinity. And so we just did some switching between 2027 and 2028, and that County Road 198 reconstruction got put back into 2027. I have since talked via text and on the phone with that individual, and although he would like it next year or even this year, he's happy that it's not pushed back to 2028.
And that discussion had been going on for a while.
Several years.
Yep, so that's part of the reason too. And there's a neighboring commissioner that's gonna be happy, or is happy, that that's gonna be done as well. So I was at the public hearing. 3 people showed up on the 5-year plan. I think this is very smart to have a plan, to have and again, it's volatile and it moves, but at least it's well thought out. Commissioner Notch reminded me yesterday on Chasm, I always forget, but we have close to 1,000 miles. You know, when you tell people we're 65 miles, you know, end to end, side to side, 65 mile, and 1,000 miles of road. You told me this morning, reminded me, less than 50 of that is gravel. You go to Meeker County, Canyon County, there's a lot of gravel county roads, and you can tell when you go across the border that you're in another county. The roads are not as good. And county-wide, you go to Padua, or you go to St. Cloud, you go to St. Stephen, or you go to Kimball, county-wide, the roads are in very good shape or are on plans. So you've done a good job. We've done a good job in helping, trying to fund that and do that, but it's not a easy deal. As I mentioned yesterday in Chasm, the consent agenda item, one of the road graders, $474,999.99, which I found interesting that it was, you know, why didn't they just round it up? But the point is, it costs money to have good roads and to have the services. So I'm not complaining, well, I am complaining about the road grader, but there's nothing we can do about that. But we need that if we're gonna have what the public expects. So, but any comments, Commissioner Notch or Clark?
No, Mr. Chair.
So I forgot now. Did we make the motion?
No.
No.
Okay. Should I make the motion?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to make the motion then, to approve the 2026, 2030 5-year road improvement program. Is there a second?
A second.
Commissioner Clark seconds. Any further discussion? Excuse me?
I said unless Steve wants to.
Oh. If nothing else, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approves.
Thank you.
Next item is environmental services, the Aquatic Invasive Species Plan, Becky and Shelley.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Shelley Benson, Environmental Services Director. I have Becky Schlorf with me today, and we will be using the doc cam, so hopefully that will be ready to go. And we'll get it up and running in a second here. We'll let Becky start.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Becky Schlorf, Ag and Water Resources Division Supervisor. So the item before you here is to consider revisions to the Aquatic Invasive Species Plan. The legislature did make a 50% reduction in the funding, which will affect Stearns County in calendar year 2028. In anticipation of this, the Aquatic Invasive Species Committee and Environmental Services did start discussing options for handling a budget reduction, and the vast majority of the budget is used for inspections, so about 70%. And so as part of that, they want to see, or we want to see, the inspection budget used for things beyond the local RFP or request for proposals project. And so that would mean a change is needed to the plan. And so I apologize, in your packet, packet page 124 and 126, those highlighted changes weren't highlighted in the packet. So I've got that shown here on the doc cam. But basically, it's just restating the plan goals and strategies here on packet page 124 to say it may include an RFP process. And then on packet page 126, under inspections, it's stating an RFP process may be utilized annually. So the intent is to still use an RFP process for the locals to request inspections at their landing, but it's also to broaden that to allow spot inspections across the county where targeted and prioritized areas, as well as landing sensors. So some people may be aware they're called eyelids. That's one of the companies, or the major company that's been utilized. And those eyelids are 24/7. They're powered by solar, and they can even, so they can provide education as well, because they do provide an audio service as well as video where even ticketing can occur. So it's a different way of targeting education as well as inspection of the watercraft. I can take any questions that you might have.
Do you want to, I'm sorry, Becky, I couldn't read. What was the change from our plan that we got to what you had up there?
In the plan that was attached in your packet, it did not show the highlighting and the edits that were made. So it's just basically, in essence, it's just opening it up and broadening it to say that the inspections may include an RFP process instead of shall or will. Mm-hmm. It's just broadening it so that the dollars, the budget for inspections can be utilized, like I said, for the landing sensors or even spot inspections.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Notch.
Yeah, and Becky, remind us again, so AIS started in what year?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Notch, it started in 2015, and our funding has stayed the same, roughly the same. So we receive approximately $250,000 per year, and so it will be reduced by 50% in 2028.
Okay.
And are we automatically going to cover that, or what are we going to do? Look for additional grants, or?
The plan at this time is to just have a reduced budget, and that's why if the plan can be revised to broaden the way we can spend the inspection dollars, then we can make a better use of those dollars. So for instance, in 2015, the cost of inspections with our vendor at that time was $16 per hour. Today in 2025, that is $30.50 per hour. And we're also seeing scheduling issues with staffing and such. And so it's not the way it used to be 10 years ago with the efficiencies of in-person inspections.
And you may want to reach out to lake associations and folks like that if we're looking for additional funding, that they may be open to trying to help out that cut. Commissioner Notch?
I was just going to ask you, kind of on the same line, is there the ability to do like cost share where you say, oh, we'll do a 50% match or something like that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Notch, yes, there are several options. So for instance, right now, when the lake associations do apply for use of those inspection dollars, they're often providing additional dollars. And so our budget is actually larger just because we're receiving those dollars and using them back for inspections on those landings. So regardless of our funding, those lake associations or other groups can purchase additional hours through our contract with the DNR or our delegation agreement with the DNR. Also, if we'll be doing a lot of education on eyelids and those landing sensors, so they're better informed. And the thought right now is either a cost share method to purchase those sensors, but that's also looking at educating them to understand what the installation cost is and the operation and maintenance costs. Those ongoing costs, we're looking at those associations would take that on.
And just what we need is a genius who, as soon as you take your boat out of water and start driving away, there's a scanner thing that just
Yes.
zaps everything, and they don't need anybody out there.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Notch, one of the we have a lot of different AIS species or aquatic invasive species out there. So, one of them is zebra mussels, and the veligers are in the ballasts. And so so the landing sensor is limited in scope versus an in-person.
I'm just thinking future.
Yeah.
Don't need anybody there, just kind of zaps your boat and
would be lovely.
good to go.
Right.
And education's, more people are more attentive to when they take their boats off. Education's been a huge thing. I've attended 5 annual Lake Association meetings, and they're all reporting very positive results by what they're doing and what we're doing with them and what the DNR, all the agencies are working together. It is making a difference. And a big part of that is just common sense and education, why it's important. And especially folks that go from lake to lake to lake, that why that means something. Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, thank you. Just kind of building on what you two just brought up is, we've got a great AIS committee who are all active in their own lake associations, and that's great. And they've been requesting more funds for a long time now. Are you starting to get a sense that they're also understanding their potential power at the legislature? Because this was kind of just done to everybody. Because from a county standpoint, we know how important this is, and as you just brought up, a lot of it is the common sense and education, and it's also more complicated than that. So is there early discussion between, and you might be hearing something too, Commissioner Bertram, from ours, because now is the time to start talking about the future, right?
Right, Commissioner Clark, a lot of our active members are also active in the Stearns COLA, Coalition of Lake Associations for Stearns, but also Minnesota COLA. And so they've invited me to participate or listen in on some of those meetings, and I have. And so they're very active with their lobby group. And so, yes, in this session, they were active too, trying to advocate for those dollars.
How do we interact? I'm sorry, are you done?
No, I'm good.
How do you interact with Kennewick County, the neighboring counties? A lot of lakes, obviously Todd County with Birch Lake, Kennewick County, Wright, all the neighboring lakes. How do we interact with those other counties and what they're doing?
Commissioner Bertram, we are not so much interacting with them because our landings are under the jurisdiction of the specific county. So even though we have some border lakes, where the landing is where the DNR delegation agreement sticks. So there's not a lot of flexibility there, but we have, over the years, we have had conversations with the other counties as far as at certain times regarding, you know, the funding, but it's not something that we're looking at coordinating together to advocate the legislature. That would be through AMC.
And reading through the materials, somewhere I think I saw that there was a reference to the task force being disbanded. Or did I misread that or misremember that?
Oh, that was from the early days of this program here in the early plan, there had been a task force to start this. And so that mission no longer was needed, and so it just evolved into an AIS committee.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions, commissioners, or else a motion would be in order?
So moved.
The motion is to approve revisions to the Stearns County Aquatic Invasive Species Plan.
And I'll second that with just stating the reluctance in the cut of funds from the state or unhappiness.
I'm impressed that I could say aquatic invasive species without any, we didn't say that at the farm a lot, so that's, so a motion's been made, seconded. Any further discussion?
They
If
were
not,
just called weeds back then.
they were called weeds, yeah. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is the Waste, Food, and to Energy Initiative. Mark Latterall,
Yep,
Shelley.
Mr. Chair, we have Mark Lateral Supervisor and Tim Oswald from our staff, and then some staff from the City of St. Cloud will be here to present the item.
Tim, before I forget, don't leave. I'd like to talk to you for a minute at some point. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Mark Lateral, Environmental Services Supervisor. With me this morning is Tim Oswald from our Solid Waste Program. And joining us is Emma Larson, the Assistant Public Utilities Director, and Jacob Ethan. He is the Wastewater Services Manager at the City of St. Cloud. Mr. Chair, we are here to address item K2 on packet page 133 with the board. This item is a request for consideration for the board to assist in allocating funds from Fund 43 to support a partnership with the City of St. Cloud in a wasted food to energy initiative with area schools. I'd like to turn it over to these folks to give you the specifics of that project and potential partnership.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Tim Oswald, Environmental Services. I guess I'm really excited to be here again today talking about this topic. As you guys know, this is something that we worked on a few years ago with the city and doing some food to packaging and waste to energy type of things out there. What we're asking for today is the Stearns County Board to partner financially with the City of St. Cloud and School District 742 in working towards a small scale project, a little bit smaller than the pilot we did a few years ago. And, you know, just, it's a pilot to get the schools involved again, particularly elementary schools, to start bringing some of that wasted food to the wastewater treatment plant and depackaging that and kind of doing the same thing that we did with the pilot project a few years ago. Hopefully we can use this as an example that it still works, and we can ramp that up eventually to a larger scale project that down the road. So previously, last year, I believe the county board had approved some money to assist the city in their application for a grant. Unfortunately, we didn't get that grant, and so we're here today asking for a little bit smaller amount to, I guess, further those same goals, just on a little smaller scale. So with that, I'll, I guess, turn over to Emma Larson with the City of St. Cloud and Jacob Ethan. If they have some, I know they have a little more details here they can share with you, and then we'll open up for questions.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Tim. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for having us this morning. We appreciate your time to discuss this sustainable project for Central Minnesota. My name is Emma Larson. I'm the Assistant Public Utilities Director with the City of St. Cloud. I've been with the utility department for 16 years, working in water, wastewater, stormwater, and at the hydroelectric facility. I have Jacob with me, who'll introduce himself.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm the Wastewater Services Manager. I've been with St. Cloud for 12 years, the past 5 as the Facility Manager. And I share the same passions with Emma as far as areas of energy recovery, utilization, and process efficiency. And there's great potential with this project to really demonstrate that.
Thank you.
So wasted food that is landfilled is a large contributing factor to greenhouse gases. It's also a complete waste of the energy potential, and we are now in a position to do something about that. For the past year, we at St. Cloud have been accepting cooking oil waste from residents throughout the city. This is added to the commercial high-strength waste that's trucked to our facility that we've been utilizing for a number of years. In Minnesota, nearly 20% of landfills are taken up by food waste, and we're now in a position to do something about that.
So as you can see in this timeline, we've been doing energy recovery and resource recovery at the facility for a decade. You can see starting in 2015, we did some energy efficiency, process efficiency items, solar arrays, biogas in 2017, and then again an upgrade in 2020. What used to be the city's largest consumer of electricity is now a net zero facility. The facility runs on renewables, and a majority of that being biogas.
So looking more specifically at the wasted food timeline, this initiative for taking in food scraps really started in 2019 when Tim approached us with interest in an alternative endpoint for food scraps from the school district. A compost facility that had been serving a lot of the larger institutions in the area had stopped taking products without a sustainable disposable option for institutions around the area. That was pre-COVID, and we had lots of big plans. Then COVID came, and delay after delay. However, we did do a pilot after a successful application for an initial grant from the MPCA, and that was completed at the Nutrient Energy and Water Recovery Facility in 2022. And we were excited to see that we were able to rescue the energy from wasted food to make this project move ahead. Since all this started with the school district, we revisited with them, and they are excited to start a sustainable practice for wasted food. Before the compost facility had closed, the school district had started separating food in the elementary schools, and they were starting to bring that up into the older children. That had took a step back when they had nowhere to dispose of the food. So this would be something that they're looking to start in their elementary schools, primarily because it's easier to teach young children than teenagers to do what they're told, to separate that food. And then we will expand that as the children grow and they educate their elders and their own families. So public utilities had $100,000 approved for our capital outlay in 2025. Since talking with for organics processing, since talking with both Stearns County and the school district, and we realized that we should put in a project that's big enough to handle what the school district is interested in. Jacob was able to get some quotes on a depackager equipment, and he can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we have a quote for a depackager separator. The additional equipment here would be a hopper, auger, and then the piping and the equipment needed to integrate the additional organics into our facility for the processing to make the biogas.
So we're here today to ask for Stearns County to partner with the city and have a matching contribution to this project so we can make this happen for the school district, hopefully as soon as possible. So with that, we'll take questions or anything else you'd like to know.
Thank you. Are you asking anything from Benton and Sherburne County?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we have not got to that point yet. Right now, we're just looking at schools in Stearns County. At that point, we might approach Tri-County or Benton and Sherburne County individually. But right now, we're just focusing on the Stearns County side of things.
Because there's students that are coming from Benton and Sherburne County. You know, I shared this with Shelley earlier on a lot of the initiatives that we do, the airport stuff, the Tri-County, you know, Commissioner Felber feels strongly that more waste should be delivered to Pope Douglas. They can do that and they're not, you know, so some of this is, and we've got 70% of the responsibility, so it's getting a little old with me. The airport, if the levy goes through, we're paying 80% of the levy. And so certainly don't mind being a partner, but a partner usually is more than two. A partnership is several. So I do believe it's legitimate. And we've been talking about this depackaging and everything for quite some time. And then the second, so not a criticism, but let's move that up, that we, you know, because if you really want to make happen what you want to make happen, additional money will help you make that happen. And a partnership's a partnership, I think, in my opinion. And then the other thing would be the digestion, food digestion beyond this, again, in the western part. There's a lot of manure digesters going in, and we had talked about years ago, and again, I know government moves slow, but let's try to speed that up a little bit. It's not rocket science, they're doing it. The manure digesting company is open to accepting it. So again, huge, because again, there's schools in Sauk Center, Melrose, Albany, Painesville, Rocori, and the digesters, especially in that Rocori, Painesville area, are right there. One of the digester companies just built a building halfway between Richmond and Roscoe where they're going to infuse the methane into a pipeline. So the infrastructure is there, and there's multiple digester sites. Let's speed that up where we can start doing the same thing in that realm instead of what they're doing in the digesters. I think it would be a win-win all the way around.
Absolutely, that is my plan, Commissioner.
And like, is that a 10-year plan or a 1-year plan?
Personally, I'd like to see a 1-year plan.
Okay, there you go. That sounds good. So 6 months from now, let's talk about that. Commissioner Notch?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious, what's Fund 43?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Fund 43 is the Environmental Service Fee Fund in which fees are gathered from the $8 per property and the 8% collection on commercial accounts for solid waste that the county gets.
So this money is actually coming out of an account that's
right. The funding, the funding is in hand. The county has the funds to expend on this if appropriated.
And then one more question is, what's the anticipated tonnage you think the school district is going to provide?
So they've assured us they're working on an exact number. Right now, they're looking at launching this in Madison Elementary, just as one school, and then expanding up. And that's why we would like to purchase a unit that's big enough to cope with at least a few schools before we expand to the entire district. But exact tonnage, I don't have that in front of me right now. I apologize.
So is there a specific amount needed to, is this going to get fed into a bigger methane digester system versus, because otherwise it seems like this is really a small little one household.
No, Commissioner Knox, we have a successful high-strength waste process at the wastewater treatment facility, the Nutrient Energy and Water Recovery Facility, which is on the south side of the city. There we are feeding municipal wastewater solids that come through with our wastewater. But we're also co-digesting or adding to that products that are hauled in from area companies and from outside of our, I didn't do anything, from outside of our area, mainly from breweries and dairy processing. And that increases the gas production, the methane production, which we are able to capture and utilize in our biogas generators. So this would be an addition to what we're already doing.
So one
Commissioner
quick question. So the deep packaging part, is that basically because of what's being thrown in with
contamination?
Sometimes there's contamination.
Sometimes, but right now we're only taking liquid high-strength waste. We do not have the ability right now to accept solid food scraps. So that's something we've been hoping to do for a number of years.
So that's what this will do.
Yes.
Is allow that. Okay, thanks.
Can you get us the tonnage, please?
Yep, certainly.
What that tonnage is? And then obviously you've talked about this. There's already food waste recycling going on, what I would call the private sector. of course, beyond the schools, you've got Walmart and Target and Costco and all those big, you know, I would assume you've got an eye towards that as well. The tonnage that Commissioner Notch asked is important because obviously what's our investment and what is that costing us per ton of production? And I know you've got an eye on that larger scale because you've talked about it at Tri-County meetings and other meetings, but obviously I don't mind being a partner, but let's have an eye to the future and grow this and get more, because those larger producers are looking for ways to get rid of it as well. Commissioner Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the tonnage is important, and certainly the speed. We talked about public health earlier, and they often talk about speed of trust, and sometimes that can mean 25, 30, 50 years. We don't want to wait that long, right? And I know for many of us, we've been waiting for this day, at least for it to get moving. So the pilot was great. It's too bad that we didn't get that additional funding. And so I think along with the tonnage, it would be helpful in the future just to really start seeing how this can get built out. And then frankly, going back to Tri-County, as Commissioner Bertram was saying, in terms of the partnerships, if we are going to expand past here, how do we get there? East side and west side. Know that I recognize, you know, your water treatment only goes so far, but it does go out to Foley and it does go down, you know, south. So, I mean, and it goes west some and it goes north. So as we're looking to expand, and I know that you've got some pretty aggressive goals, and how together can we get there? And Mr. Chair, I mean, I'm excited about this. I know you know that when you were talking about 6 months or whatever, I remember coming on after getting first elected in 2018 and 2019 thinking, oh, maybe we could start doing something in the next year or so. And here it is, you know, 6.5 years later. But with that and the belief that we'll not only get the tonnage, some idea about how we can move more quickly to more places, I will make the motion to authorize the allocation of the funds from Fund 43.
Okay, motion's been made.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Notch seconds it. When you said, Mark, the $8 fee, so none of the tax dollars are being used for this, or is that fund as well or not?
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the SCORE dollars are a separate funding source.
Okay.
The environmental service fee is that 8%, $8 collection that the county has on solid waste. So they're two different pots.
Sure. And is it it's $8, not 8%?
It's $8 on residential properties and per parcel, and then 8% on commercial accounts.
Oh, so that is the tax. The commercial tax in Stearns County is 25%.
But it's not the SCORE dollars.
Got it.
SCORE dollar funding is separate.
But when commercial accounts are charged 25%, it's 8% higher than what the state 17% is. So it is coming out of that 8%. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I just want to understand it.
It's the county collects an 8% on commercial
Correct.
solid waste accounts. They collect an $8 fee on residential properties, parcels. So that's the funding revenue that streams into Fund 43. The SCORE dollars are a separate tax dollars we receive from the state funding.
Because just to visualize it, if it's an $8 per property, that's 12,500 residents that are going to help make this $100,000 fee possible. So I mean, again, that's why we want to make this as productive and, you know, as we can. Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Not. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, you got your 100,000.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
6 months, Tim.
I would love that.
Do we need a break or can we keep going?
Yes, please, just briefly.
Okay, we're gonna have a 5-minute break, so we'll recess. The next item of business is Mike, administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of items under administration today. The first one is a report on our flexible work policy. As you know, we've had the policy in place since 2022, and I would argue that it's improved our ability to serve the public, along with creating a culture where our employees are more satisfied. Jill and I, mostly Jill actually, worked with our leadership team in creating this report, and so I'm going to quickly pass this over to Jill to show the report. And I know some people have kind of connected some of the backlog in the human services public assistance areas with this policy, and I would suggest to you that they are not connected. Well, I shouldn't say it. It is actually a policy that has helped in that area as well, but we are going to talk about that topic at our July 8th meeting. So not that we can't get in anything the board wants a question about, just a reminder that we will have that on your agenda for July 8th as well. So I'll pass it over to Jill, and you can see a number of the leadership team is here if there's questions about how we implement this policy, because it does get implemented differently in different departments, because we all, as you know, we provide a myriad of services, some that will not allow anybody to work from home or to work flexible hours and that kind of thing. But we do have some that have embraced that policy and actually used it to improve how they serve the community. So before we go to Jill, just and for the board's purposes and yours, how deep in the woods do we want to get in, or weeds do we want to get into this? I think personally, I suggested to Melissa that we kind of have a bigger scope discussion, and then do we really zero in on a work session or something where, you know, because I've got a whole bunch of questions, and again, you know, it's got to be a win-win situation, what the public perceives and what we all have individual feelings on this. I think Commissioner Persky certainly does, and he's not here today, but my gut reaction would be, let's like do the 5,000 foot view kind of today, but can we have a follow-up? And again, I'm asking the board and you, can we have a deeper follow-up where we get a little bit deeper into it with more discussion? How does the board and how do you want to deal with that? I think that's fine. Like I say, we were planning on having the next discussion in a work session format, which, as we always think, that does allow you to get into the more detail, and we'll have the right people there and a longer period of time scheduled to do. And that would be the July 8th? Yes. Okay, so I think. Particularly if you're interested in the kind of the human services side of that, and that's what I thought I was hearing, but maybe not. I think overall, I think the perception, we'll all get into what we're hearing from the public and what perception is and what our own perceptions are. But if that works, in my opinion, and again, Commissioner Notch, Commissioner Clark, on the July 8th, if we can get into it a little bit deeper, and I would say it goes beyond health and human services, I think. But that's certainly potentially part of it. But so is that okay that we would dive into it deeper on the 8th then? And then just some today and then got it. Okay, Jill, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. Jill Surmeyer, I'm the Assistant County Administrator. So thank you for having me in today to talk about the implementation of our personnel policy on work arrangements. As Mike just referenced, it was first adopted in 2022. Really the heart of this policy is about empowering your department leaders to examine the work products that they deliver to the residents of the county and the services they provide, and ensuring that those services and products are delivered in the best means possible. So this policy provides the flexibility for the department leaders to look at, one of our biggest inputs, which is staff, and trying to optimize their schedules and their locations of where they work in order to deliver those services so that they're cost effective, they are meeting the needs of the residents, and that they're high quality, and that they keep the employees here and retain that quality staff that we have. So this policy provides some parameters too for making sure that staff are productive within their work arrangements. All employees in Stearns County are required to be Minnesota residents. They're required to be on call during the core hours of their department. So each department kind of decides on core working hours, core collaboration hours. Staff have to be available to come into the county facilities whenever they're needed. So if that's for their shift or for a meeting or for training or whatever the needs are of their supervisors, they're required to come in and be available, which means no staff can have, children or be doing some sort of care activities or related activities at home because they need to be on call to come in if need be. So that's just an overview of kind of the policy. So I want to note that the reason for this policy was because we were seeing shifts in how services need to be delivered based on cultural change in our communities. And as I said earlier, since staff are kind of our biggest input, those are the levers that we can pull, their schedules and locations, in order to optimize service delivery when it comes to these shifts in our culture. And so one of the big shifts in our culture in the last few years is just growth in online service delivery and desire for more online services. We call this self-service. There's an increase globally in having the ability to access services when you want from wherever you are. And we're seeing this reflected in our services. So here are just 3 examples of where we've seen growth in demand for our online services. And this policy has provided the flexibility to our department leaders to look at that demand change and adjust their staffing schedules and their staff's locations in order to meet those new service demands. So in the last year, the Auditor Treasurer's Office launched a new online property tax hub. And I'll say that this 18% growth is actually between 2024 and 2025. The cool thing about this is that it also allows people to schedule payments for their spring and fall payments. So we've already had 1,400 property tax owners schedule their payments ahead of time. Staying within the Auditor Treasurer's area, we have the county's virtual license center, which has been around for years, but we're seeing growth in this area. So reflecting back that this is a change in culture, that people are going more into using virtual services. We did see an overall increase recently in the Auditor Treasurer's Licensing Center due to the change with the Real ID. So I don't know how much of this is reflected in that dollar amount, but just noting that we are seeing higher demand, especially in the last year or so because of Real ID within the License Center area. Parks has been using its online portal to do reservations, and we've seen really strong stable use of that. So last year they had over 287 reservations made through that system, and that represents over 14,400 individuals engaging with our parks facilities. So they're utilizing that online service. And the last area is the Land Services Portal, which saw a 33% increase in usage for people submitting applications through that. And from there, they collected about 31% of the total payments to the department through an online portal. So the way that the flexible work arrangement policy connects to this is that because we're seeing more online growth, it means that we don't need as much counter service. There's 1,000 fewer people that came through our drive-through for the License Center in the last year because they were utilizing online services or they decided to walk in instead. And that means that we want to shift where staff are. And we've seen many of our departments utilize a rotating schedule with their staff now, which has been really effective. So staff are some days expected to be front counter staff. And so they come into work knowing that their purpose that day is to be engaging with the residents that come in to be as helpful as possible. And then on another day, they'll be doing their back-end work. They'll be helping processing applications. They'll be reviewing cases. And this style of work arrangement is new because of this policy, and it's really helped optimize providing high-quality customer service on the days when they need to do that, but also having really focused work to do that back-end to be more productive. And I'll get into those numbers a little bit later. So one of the other major shifts, cultural shifts that have impacted service delivery is just technology innovation. It's hard to overstate the impact that Teams has had in making our work more efficient and effective. You are familiar with using Teams, but it's just amazing to me how easy it is to connect with anyone at any time, whether it's my staff or I'm connecting with partners from across the state or having a call with some colleagues from different states. And the Teams work combined with the departments who have decided to go mostly paperless has really created a great synergy in reducing any wasted time. So we see with our HR department the adoption of doing kind of first round interviews via Teams. So you can have stack interviews close together. And some of these first round interviews, they might be kind of short, depending on the candidate. And if you're having them in person, you would be sitting and waiting for the next applicant to come in. Instead, you know, if you got 15 minutes, you can pop over to my email, answer some email, and then jump back onto Teams to do the next interview. So it's really creating a lot of efficiency with that original time that was downtime. The GovQA portal is something we adopted in the end of 2023. And this is the opportunity for residents to submit data requests. So in the past, they used to have to come in here twice, first to submit their request, and then come back and pick it up. And then they'd have to pay for copies that were being made. This way, they can submit their request online from anywhere at any time. That request goes to a Stearns County staff member who then distributes it to whatever staff member it needs to go to. They can pull the data and send it directly to that resident. So it saves the resident 2 trips into the county, plus any costs of paying for parking or paying for copies to be made. So it's just another example of technology that we've adopted to within this, you know, online world to make things more effective. And the reason that we're able to do this so well is because we have a fantastic IT team. In the last 11 months, they've had 9,975 requests for service. So this is the different tickets that we all submit when we're having tech issues. And of those, they have resolved 9,900 of them. And they do almost all of those remotely. They just remote into your computer to fix it. It's remarkable technology, and they have such a good team. And the fact that they're doing this while at the same time doing research, doing cybersecurity work for us, they just do remarkable work. Moving on to the third shift in service delivery that's impacted things is employee location and scheduling. So this is a significant one in that in 2019, we moved environmental property and human services out of the administration center to the service center. And so a lot of the activity that was in this building prior to 2019 now is out at the service center. We still see staff coming in this building, of course, but it's not at the same volume as before, and that's because the staff are now at the service center where we had that expansion. In addition to that, staff are now encouraged to kind of maximize their schedules, which when I move into the savings part of this presentation, it's really helped us reduce mileage and reduce a lot of unproductive time that was spent behind a windshield. So it used to be past practice that staff would be expected to come into the admin building or service center to start their day, and then they'd go out and work. That meant that you would have an employee who lives in Melrose, driving into St. Cloud, checking in, getting their cup of coffee, looking their emails, and then they'd go back out into the field. It could be all the way back out to Sauk Center to do site visits or to meet with clients. And so that mileage, you know, going from St. Cloud back out to Melrose and then back in to finish your day, that's at least 80 minutes of your time, and it's 70 miles of mileage. So it's just like a huge waste. So now the expectation is that people plan their days to meet what the work is that they're going to do. So if they're going to be doing site visits and they're doing site visits in communities near their home community, to do their work from their home computer. And if they need to come into St. Cloud for meetings, then they plan for those days to be doing fewer site visits. So it's focusing on efficiencies and trying to optimize that for cost savings. And I think that, we were talking earlier about the importance of paying attention to the entirety of the county and not just of what's happening in St. Cloud. And I think that this policy helps dismantle the centralization of St. Cloud and Waite Park in Stearns County services, because our residents are everywhere in the county and our employees are everywhere in the county. And so we don't need to have our employees so centralized in St. Cloud when they're serving people from their home communities. So going into the benefits area of this policy, one of the big ones is just cost savings. So going back to that piece about mileage, rather than having people always start their day and at the office in St. Cloud or Waite Park, letting them start their day where they're going to be working has reduced mileage significantly. So in 2019, before we adopted this policy, we were seeing increase from 17, 18, 19 in the amount of mileage. In 2019, we went over 1 million miles needing to be reimbursed in mileage. Now we're closer to 500 to 600,000 miles every year for reimbursement. So that's a huge reduction in the amount of mileage we have to reimburse. So that's a savings of 300,000 in 2024. Not only is it a savings in mileage reimbursement, but it's a huge savings in staff time and productivity. So doing some back of the napkin math, you could probably equate it to about 2.5 FTEs worth of savings, based on miles per hour driven and the number of miles driven and things like that. And we've seen the benefits of this in production within our staff. So human services staff, we've seen that they are able to get through 100 more cases per FTEs because of this change in the flex work environment, that they are starting their day where they're going to be doing their site visits. So that means we've seen a 25% increase in their efficiency. The assessor's office, which was the office that originally pioneered this, they initially saw a 12% increase in output without adding staff. But this has continued to improve for their efficiency to the point that this year, when they've adopted some recent technology advances, they're able to add another 5,000 residents into their assessing portfolio without having to take on more staff to add that many more properties. And we've also seen this type of productivity help with, like any department where you might have wait times. A good example is like the attorney's office. Staff used to have to wait for the judge to be ready to go in and do their activities with the court. In that time, they would be sitting, waiting at the courthouse for the judge to be ready. Now, as they're doing that, because the attorney's office has made a concerted effort to go paperless, they're able to tackle a lot of their own work while they're waiting. So it used to be just unproductive time, and now with their laptops, they're able to work anywhere at any time. Another benefit is just office space. So with this policy change, we didn't need as many desks at the service center, which means that we had room for extension. So extension was able to end a $25,000 lease. So that's a savings for extension on that point. We've also just not needed to add desks as we add new employees. And so the past practice would be that if we are going to have a new FTE, you got to have a space for them. Now we have about 84 FTEs that don't have spaces for them or workstations for them. So exploring that in the future, if we want to do something different, it would be about $5,000 per workstation, plus it would cost money to do remodeling for our buildings in order to fit that many workstations, if that's possible. And the final benefit I want to highlight is that it just makes us employer of choice. So we know from our recruiters that flexibility is a top priority when it comes to applicants for our jobs. It's a common question within the interview process. And the fact that we have the ability to allow some flexibility with location and scheduling, we know that more staff from places that are further out than Stearns County look for jobs here in Stearns County. It gives us a bigger applicant pool, It attracts new talent and great talent to the county. One example is we have an exciting new position in IT that we will be filling soon, and they are able to get applicants from all across the nation for this job, which is phenomenal because you know, it's gonna, for this type of position, you want to have the best person qualified for it. That person won't have to move to Minnesota, but it's likely that we wouldn't have gotten such great applicants and a great applicant pool without having the flexibility policy in place. We also know from changes that we've had to make in other staff schedules that if this types of flexibility goes away, that staff will leave the county. So a lot of flexibility I've been talking about in this presentation is location, but Stearns County provides a variety of flexibility when it comes to scheduling as well. Not all staff do an 8 to 5, 5 days a week schedule. We have staff in dispatch, patrol, corrections, highway maintenance, building facilities, environmental services, and parks that work alternative scheduling. And these are really prized schedules. So some of our staff work 4-10s, which means that they work 4 days at 10-hour shifts. And recently we had to consider changing that due to business reasons. And we know that those staff immediately started putting applications in at other places because of that change in their schedule. That type of flexibility in our research is we're the only county that provides that type of benefit of a 4-10 compared to our comp counties. And so it's the reason why they stay at Stearns County, or one of the main reasons they stay at Stearns County. Luckily, we didn't have to make that change. But we also hear from staff going through to exit interviews that they have taken jobs elsewhere due to additional flexibility offered by other employers. So it's something that we want to continue to provide. So that's the main overview of the policy and how it's been implemented. I also want to note that I think that our staff do just such an excellent job, and this policy empowers our department leaders to look at what they're doing and how they're delivering services and do it in a way that is cost effective, that meets the needs of residents, and that also fits preferences for our great employees. And if you look through the report and just do a simple addition, I reference over 200,000 points of contact between Stearns County employees and Stearns County residents. And if you think about Mike and I have talked about this, but I don't hear complaints. And considering the number of touches that our staff have with residents, that's amazing. And if you think about, let's say that each commissioner got 100 complaints, that's 1 every 3 days, that's 500 complaints. That's 0.2% of all interactions of that 200,000, which is amazing considering the number of people that we engage with. And county work objectively is challenging work. A lot of people don't want to engage with counties because it means you're having a bad day. It means you're getting a speeding ticket. It means you're engaging with the child protection system. It means you might be applying to public assistance. And so when people are not having good days, they're probably not happy about services they're receiving, and yet we don't see those complaints coming through. And I think the butt of all bureaucratic jokes is really the DMV, and nobody likes going to the DMV. And yet, Randy's team did a survey of resident satisfaction and got an 89% satisfaction rating for good to excellent, which according to like customer service survey of big retailers, he has beat every big retailer. People are more likely to be satisfied leaving the Stearns County DMV than they are leaving like Sam's Club. So our staff do like such amazing work, and policies like this that allow our department leaders to really optimize and dial in our service delivery enable us to deliver that good quality work. So these are just key takeaways from the report, but Mike and I are happy to answer any questions and look forward to having more conversation about this.
Thank you, Jim. On that point with the DMV, every time I'm here at West Service Center, when people are walking out, I stop them and I say, I'm just curious, what did you do this morning and how was your experience? That has a lot to say about Randy and his team that generates that. The interactions that people have with different departments, it comes from the top down, period. And certainly Randy is one of many that have proven that. So, but appreciate that. Commissioner Notch?
Yeah, Jill, can you give an example of adjusting the work schedule? I know you mentioned like 410s, but when you talked earlier, you said based on virtual use, they're allowed to adjust their work schedule. Is that like starting time, ending time, so there's more hours somebody's available, or?
Yeah, well, it would be, starting times, ending times. The main thing with like virtual would be just adjusting like location of work and less about like timing of work schedules. One thing that I think people forget, if they are coming into a county facility every single day, is that they still benefit from some type of flexibility. It might not be location flexibility, but it's flexibility in how their schedule is set up.
So just to tie into that, how do the remote workers, like if they have a question for another coworker, is there a quick means besides just that email or a phone call? I mean, like a Jabber thing or some app?
Yeah, so the Teams app allows you to do chat messaging, and the cool thing about it is that you can chat one person or you can chat a whole group of people, and it's easy just to do one call, or you can pull in other people into the call. So there's been so many times I'm having a call with Jenny and HR, and we need a specific information from Krista, so then Krista gets pulled into that call, and it's just so easy to do that. It's like being in the same space.
Okay.
Anything else?
Well, it was, so on service delivery, you just mentioned Randy's survey. Does the county ever have a third party, or do any of the other departments do survey type things, or have they? Maybe they haven't.
We have in different ways. Those numbers do come from a third-party survey.
Oh, it is? Okay.
I can always catch on when Melissa wants to say something because she gets real animated.
It's the wave.
But even some of our internal departments have conducted, something like finance or IT, they've done internally where when they send a correspondence, they ask people to do a little survey. And some have done that to their outside public as well. But there's probably not anything that's totally ongoing that I can think of anyway.
I was
Somebody
just
might be
curious
doing
if,
it, but-
all of a sudden you say, hey, why don't you call a percentage of these people and just, hey, how was your visit? Or like Jeff, you just mentioned.
The survey is, and I'll get into that a little bit, but the survey is if we don't hear from somebody, then it's going well. And if we do hear from people, then it's not going well. So that's kind of the survey I use. So, but Melissa?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Melissa Huberty, the Human Services Administrator. In Human Services, we actually have done this routinely, particularly in our involuntary services area and community corrections with very high marks. We're also now implementing it because with the last budget cycle, you approved a new technology product for us to do this anonymously. So we're implementing it across the board in Human Services. So that we just don't have the data yet. We're in the middle of creating the measurement for it.
Okay.
So.
We just heard this morning, or the last time we met, in the group we met with this morning.
Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee.
CJCC, thank you. But even in community corrections, they do a survey.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And I tallied that up, and it's like a 95 or 94% approval rating for community corrections between the agents and their clients, which is amazing.
Yeah, especially with an involuntary service that you usually don't want.
Right. The survey obviously will be different, based on what it is that they're interacting with, Commissioner Notch.
The last thing I had is, I would have to kind of concur with some of this. Some of these committees, Community Corrections Advisory Board, which is virtual. I mean, just for myself, coming from the west, that's a half hour here for maybe an hour meeting, how far back. So, if I can sit at my workstation, attend the meeting virtually and go right back to work versus spending an hour meeting, hour on the road. So some of this, I would concur that, yeah, there is definitely a time savings, just being able to access work more quickly or to be more productive maybe is the right word.
That's correct.
Okay, Commissioner Clark?
Excuse me, yeah, Commissioner Nutz, you just actually asked a couple of mine, but I am, a couple of things to build off what you just said about corrections, because those numbers are amazing and it's hard. So when you're talking about going more system-wide, thinking about child protection or a few of our other super stressful ones, would that most likely, like with corrections, come at a particular point in time, or what's your thinking? Because again, like you said, when people are super stressed, those are not always easy conversations. I don't know what your thoughts are. I'm interested in your thoughts. That can be for another day. And then if with staff being able to modify their workdays some, is that expanding the hours of contact then for our residents? Are they able to do, in how many departments, right? Because the traditional way of looking at things is you come into a license center or something else in particular hours, but we do have a lot of people who are looking either earlier or later because their own lives work that way. If you could speak to that too.
Yeah, I'll Mr. Chair, I'll start, and then Melissa, if you want to chime in too on work hours. That's definitely something that we've seen adjustment on based on resident needs. So with Shelley's team out at Household Hazardous Waste, we've expanded those hours and added more weekend hours based on interest to have additional hours. The policy requires that each department leader kind of establish core working hours, and so that all team members are available to engage with one another during those core hours. And then we let department leaders determine how much flexibility they want to have around that. When it comes to like counter service, we want to have something that's pretty consistent, so that people know when we're open, so there's less confusion in that area. And I know that Melissa's team has examined this specific issue.
And yeah, to that, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Clark.
before Ms. Huber, you answer that. I mean, clearly we have specific times that people are coming in, but we're also promoting that our staff is out in community and they're also available remotely. And we've been being asked forever, right? I mean, all counties, all governments have been asked for additional services. So if somebody's working a 410, does that mean there is some opportunity from our residents that they're able to actually have a way to enhance contact during that time, recognizing that a lot of, what you've done virtually in terms of services that you can just go do online, obviously also frees up that time as you talked about earlier. But specifically, are people actually able to get to, I know in corrections, I've heard that. The answer is yes. I don't know about for some others.
I can only speak for human services in that regard, but particularly all of our community, most of our work is done in the community. Flexibility has absolutely not just been helpful, it's actually critical and mandated half the time because child protection doesn't happen between 8 and 4:30. So we have a lot of children in and out of this building lately, and the weekends, in the evenings. We have assessments happening in the evening because that's what the community is demanding, and that's the service we provide.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. Anything more, Steve?
No, that's all I had.
Okay. I'm going to just have a bunch of big picture stuff and take notes or listen to the recording or whatever when we dive deeper in this. This is going to sound like it's kind of tilted, and I guess I'll be upfront. I do think we need to tweak what we've got. So I'm not looking personally to do away with this. I know Commissioner Persky has some feelings on this, and he can share them separately, but the one thing I'll say, and again, everybody, well, not everybody, most of you know me well enough to know this isn't a criticism, this is a critique. First and foremost, I'm extremely sensitive. The people come first. And then, of course, we're the board of directors, and then it's the administration. And so some of this, you have to kind of pattern towards the people. And as we well know, you've got folks that are, 15, 18, and you've got people that are 90, that are using our services. And the older you get, the more interest there is in doing face-to-face personal service. So we always have to keep that in mind. But everything I read, and certainly the notes I took, I will just say this, that it seems 98%, it's one-sided. For me to make a good decision in business or personally or here, I need to know both. I need to know this is what's working, these are some of the challenges. And I haven't seen one challenge raised, and I'm gonna raise them and ask you to look into them because, again, in order for us to make a good long-term decision, I think we need to do that. We're always going to be told they can leave, pay, vacation time, benefits, Career Solutions yesterday. I mean, we're talking about people from Career Solutions are gonna go to Benton County. Benton County's gonna come here. Our people are gonna go to the cities. I mean, we hear that all the time, and people aren't loyal like they used to be. I mean, a lot of people still are, but that's always gonna happen, and you're not gonna always appease everybody all the time, and they're still gonna be looking for different reasons. So I guess that's just part of the reality. But it certainly varies by departments. Some department directors kind of demand that workers are there. So again, that's fine. The in the field language, I have no qualms about that at all. It makes no sense, but I'd like to know how many percentage of employees are in the field. But that makes all the sense in the world. I've worked at home my entire life, and I've taught the boys, not everybody can do that. I'll tell you that. Not everybody can work at home because they're not self-motivated, they're not self-managed. Some people do need someone to tell them, you need to do this, you need to do that, and you can do that remotely, but that doesn't always work. So, but in the field makes sense to me. The monitoring of remote work. I know Melissa told me many, many months ago, because I listen to everything she says and I remember everything she tells me, that you monitor employees and you've terminated employees because they weren't performing. I'd like to know how you do that, and how do you monitor that, and how do you notification to the supervisor if you leave the work location. How does that work? How is that done? So if you're gonna go outside and weed the garden for an hour, how does that supervisor know that that's what you're doing? Because the public, the 2%, Jill, again, most of us don't have to do surveys. If you attend the number of parades and the church festivals and the community events that I do and we all do in different ways, that's the survey. And as Melissa knows that I say, if I get one phone call or one letter or one email, I always feel there's another 100 people that are out there that feel that way, that don't know me or don't know one of us, and so they don't know who to express that to. So again, that doesn't mean that it's widespread, but if we get 0.02%, our goal should be 0.01% or 0.00. So, but that perspective. You can't live outside of Minnesota, which I thought was good, but you can live out of Stearns County, I assume.
That's correct.
Okay. The percentage of the people that work in the community, employer choice, like I said, we'll always struggle with that. The remote performance review, I'd like to know a little bit more about that. The child care and those kinds of things, I don't know how that's monitored. So if you have children and you have to make arrangements, the policy says, how do we know that? Is that child care still in home, or how do we monitor what the child care is and where that's being done? County equipment, is there county equipment provided for at-home work? And how does that play into everything else? There's a lot of statements like improved services, increased efficiencies. You know, again, I don't doubt that, but my mind, I need some proof. I mean, I need, how did we come to that statement? How do we know that? The maintaining performance expectations, that's important, and that can happen if it's at home or if it's in the office. I mean, that's critical, but that doesn't, you know, that's important any place. And then comments like 12% increase in output without adding staff, stable due to hybrid work, employment. Again, the factual, or where's the proof to that? We processed 32% more applications. I mean, that's hard for me to believe almost, that, you know, that in human services, we could process 32% more applications with at-home work. I mean, that's just hard for me. So again, kind of some statistics or proof to back that up. Number of calls. The last survey that was done, a work environment survey, to my knowledge, based on this, was in 2020. Have we done one since, or are we planning on doing one? Because again, things evolve and things change, so don't know how that is working. Well, we just talked to a county, and I can't remember if it was Morrison when we were at the district meeting, but they talked about a third, where employees will work 2 days at home, 2 days in the office, and then it's a third where they interact. So there's still some at-home work, but they are in the office. So they kind of, and I never had heard that. I thought that was an interesting concept. Yep, and in community and working in the community and working at home is two different things to me. Mm-hmm. You know, the people that are working in the community, again, that makes sense. Hybrid work model, we have been able to serve more people more efficiently in a manner that most people want. Again, a very general statement. Most people, again, I can tell you that there's residents that wouldn't agree with that, and there's some workers that wouldn't agree with that. But you know, those are huge generalizations, in my opinion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I could speak to that. I think the point of that statement is that, you know, the focus of the presentation showed a lot of what we can do with technology and having this online focus. And that is to show that we're expanding in that space, but we aren't eliminating any in-person opportunity. So anything that we do online is available in person for still. So like our parks reservation, facility reservation system, you can still go into the parks office and reserve it, or you can call Ben's team and still reserve it, or you can use the online portal. So we are very sensitive to the fact that folks, not everyone wants to do stuff online. And a good example is our veterans team. They do almost everything in person because their clients that they're working with want to have in-person meetings. And so Corey has structured his department to have that type of schedule and that worker location style, which looks different than some of the other departments that are working with people who are less interested in coming into a county facility to do that work. And I think I stated it in the report, but note that we don't have any employees that are 100% remote. That doesn't exist in Stearns County. Every employee comes into the county facility at some point to do a shift or meetings or trainings. There's an expectation that people are here. And there was a lot of, or I shouldn't say a lot, but several places it was contradicting to that point, Jill, where it says staff are regularly in the center. And it talks about your remote and what a benefit that is and everything. And then it talks about
team meetings, which will happen in person regularly. So we're saying they're working at home, and then we say they're reporting regularly. So again, what that mix is would be helpful to know what that is. And out of our 1,000 employees, how many of them, I mean, again, maintenance, highways, some of those, they have to be there. The license, center. Of the 1,000, how many of them are working 100% in the office, some hybrid, remote, that would be helpful. And then, again, to make this a balanced discussion when we have it, which this shocked me, is that Jason Youngblood, who's leads the Cigna Healthcare Behavioral Center, has been doing very in-depth reports, and loneliness on the job is an emerging health issue. And I have it, if you don't, and I've read extensively about this. Some people really, really need interaction with other employees, and they're better employees when that interaction happens. But they're more likely to miss work. 35% of people miss at least one day a month and show up distracted, 42% based on his study. So again, to balance it, that doesn't mean everybody's gonna do that or become that, but yet in the same token, it's an emerging health issue. We have to be aware of it because it's something that, pre-COVID, we would never even have thought about. We wouldn't have thought about working from home, and we wouldn't have thought about it becoming an emerging health issue. So let's just answer some of those questions and get a little bit more balanced report if we can, and then go from there. And Mike, if you got something to add, certainly be open to hearing that.
I think your last point, Mr. Chair, is why this policy, why the board approved, gives department directors a little bit of leeway and to make those decisions of who's going to be scheduled in and out of the office. We definitely have people, as you say, that function better in the office, or that we've determined that they're not very well at working from home. So that flexibility allows us to make decisions based on that particular employee needs too. And we could talk a little more about that, but we know there's been people that this isn't working for you, so we need to do something different.
And I'm sure that's hard for them, and they may be looking for other jobs then because they've been told you can't work at home or you're not productive. And yet a reality is a reality. And there might be some people that can work very well from home and aren't interested. They want to be in the office. So I'm sure we have a variation of all of those. And the flexibility of 410s and all that other stuff, that's all important. I'm all for that. But to do carte blanche, this is nothing new. The state of Minnesota is calling back a bunch of their workers. The private sector is calling back more and more of their workers. So again, a good cross-section of this, I think, would be, it's time to just look and should we tweak it, is my opinion. So thank you for being patient, and and if you can share some of that information prior to July 8th, that would be helpful. Anything else, Commissioner Notch, Commissioner Clark?
Nope, they answered my questions ahead of time. I'll be happy to forward some more to them.
The calls, and one of the things is, the calls, Melissa's been extremely good about following up when, and I know Commissioner Notch has shared with me some of his stories, and I've shared with some of, when those issues happen, when they're not getting return phone calls and whatever, to address that right away. And yes, I know Mike said in his report, that has nothing to do with it. I find that hard to believe, and I'm not saying it has everything to do with it, but it's probably a combination that, again, people can get distracted unless somebody's really holding them to task, in my opinion. So again, how do we get there? I don't know that, but we'll talk about that. Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, along that line, I wasn't sure that we were going to fully connect maybe those topics today, but the last Human Services Advisory Board meeting, there was a pretty incredible presentation done on some new tools that are going to help with that backlog, or already are helping, and will help our residents better. So I was at least asking, and I'll say to you guys, I think it would actually be helpful for us to see maybe at one of our work sessions, the demonstration we saw there about how will that help with the backlog. We've had some huge phone issues for a very long time, and I'm looking at Mike Pooler right now because you and your staff clearly feel horrible about this. It has helped, you know, my surveys have been, the minute I finally get to a human being, it is incredible and they take care of it. It's the getting to the human being and how frustrating it is. So I'm wondering if we could perhaps it would be helpful, I think, for our board to get a chance to have a better understanding, for all of us to have a better understanding about what that's doing. But if there's other technology, be it Workday or other things, like what else is out there that might be helpful for us to understand, because it probably at times it is interconnected, and whether it is or isn't, those are still big deals, and it's never okay that anybody's having to wait to get through a phone. So it'd be, I think, very useful to see that.
Okay, thank you for the report, and we'll discuss this more on July 8th then. Thank you. Next item would be the update on the Jail Justice Center. Kevin has been patiently waiting. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Bertram, Commissioners. Kevin Cornick, Facilities Manager for Stearns County, and I got what I'll call a pretty informal update for you today. I placed a paper copy on your desk, and I'll get that out to you as I've done with the previous ones. But the big news with the project is that our design development set of drawings and specifications were released by the architect. That is a huge milestone in the design of the project. That's where a lot of the meat gets put on the bones, a lot of the details get put in, equipment gets picked out. The specifications are developed, and actual product selections start to show up and all of those kinds of things. So when we got the drawings, I think we're north of 900 pages and 3 volumes of specs. So that's been Captain Mark and my last couple of weeks, is paging through specs and drawings to make sure that they have in there what we want and what we need, and try and find those things that maybe we don't need as well. So
just trying to be fair, I'm going to ask Commissioner Clark to read that report and report back at the next meeting. I don't want to give everything to Commissioner Notch, so.
Mr. Chair, I will be willing to after I read the public health report that I've been waiting for.
It's nice that you're being fair about that.
Yes, I'm trying to.
Wait a second, just real quick, Mr. Chair. I have to say, I'm not going to spend great detail on the specifications because I won't understand them. Thank you, I knew you were
I'm going to
joking.
wait for the 2-page report on something, and I'll do the report on
Right,
that
this
one.
is where's, I want the 1 page.
I narrowed it down to 3. It's the best I could do today.
Okay.
Getting into some of the little more detailed activities, the staff, our design staff, and the city of St. Cloud continue to work through some of our utility connections. As you know, we're about 2,000 feet away from the city's main infrastructure, and so we're working through the best way to get sewer and water and power and gas and all of those things to the site in the volume that we need. And we're getting very close to finalizing that. Some engineering came back and suggested that we should have a water main loop instead of a single branched pipeline. We're looking into that. That would be something we hadn't priced before. So digging through that. The jail portion of the project continues to move ahead at a very good clip. Mark's been very good at getting the design team the information, the answers, the research, the data that they need to do that. And that part of the project really is moving fast, which is good because that's a significant portion of our first bid package is the jail in its, generally in its entirety. So my team, my supervisors, my plumbers, and my electricians have spent a lot of time here this last month looking at systems from a redundancy and a resiliency standpoint. As you know, our facilities downtown here are pretty solid when it comes to redundancy. We can heat from 2 different fuel sources. We have several different ways to power the facilities. We have our own well should we have a water system interruption. But looking back on 40 years, those systems really don't get used that much. So when we look at this building, some of those redundant systems are, very expensive when you get into high efficiency type systems. So we've done a lot of work looking at what's the best solution. Is it something that we install? Is it a contracted plan through emergency management that when we have an issue, we have a resource and we bring those things in? And getting a long ways down that path, and I hope in the next couple of weeks we have some pretty solid resolutions on what that it looks like. So for our construction management team, they've been pretty quiet this past week. They're taking those design development drawings and they're really doing a line by line, square foot by square foot takeoff for all the different types of materials, the types of equipment, civil site work, and all of those things. So this is really as close to a full-blown estimate as we're probably going to see till we see our bid day results. And I know they have a significant team working through it. I think probably plus 20 that's tearing this thing apart, and they're getting into estimating carpet and estimating trim and all of those kinds of things. So I'm expecting a pretty healthy detail in this estimate. And then on some of those major systems, electrical, plumbing, mechanical, fire suppression, they've actually reached out to contractors in the industry to do some of that pricing work and offer some insight on what they're seeing and things that could be done better, cheaper, different as well. So while it's an estimate, it's also a bit of a design exercise to make sure that what we got on paper is what the industry can do. We continue to keep a very close eye on the market in general in our area, and I'm happy to report that the market in our area has been generally positive. There's been a couple of projects we've been tracking most closely. Our neighbor next door here, Benton County, bid their Justice Center out in late May, early June, and came in over 20% under their estimated construction costs. So almost a $5 million savings on a $30 million build. Probably more encouraging to me is it was in the top 5 greatest bidder participation that Contegrity Group has had on a Minnesota project. So that tells me that the market's really looking to put some work on the books for this year, next year, and years following. So, and that's going to be the biggest cost savings we could ask for in this project is good bidder participation. So positive signs. On your agenda today was the authorization for the county to seek a third-party heating, ventilation, and air conditioning commissioning agent. What that agent does is really works on behalf of us, the owner, to make sure that what the designers are designing, what the contractors are providing and installing is what we're looking for, is something that's going to last the test of time, is going to be code compliant. It's really a bit of an owner's advocate, if you will, in that heating and air conditioning arena. You take all of those different systems that make this thing go, from the controls to the equipment to the registers to the thermostats, and making sure that all is playing nice together on a building this size. It's I don't want to undersell how complicated of a task that is. So, and on top of that, on a building this large, it's a code requirement. So we're reaching out to some of our local partners that do that work here with your blessing today, and hope to bring that back to the board probably in an early August, mid-August board meeting. So.
And on that issue, Kevin, as I asked you before the meeting, or on Friday or Monday, depending upon what the scale of the project is, does that matter? And you said, no, it will be tailored to whatever the project ends up being. Because my concern was that we're not going to say, okay, we want what we approved in the consent agenda based on a full build.
Sure.
In case it's not a full build, and you said the flexibility is there that we still can.
Yeah, in almost every construction contract we'll issue, we'll have language in there that if the scope of the project changes, their contract changes. Sometimes that's negotiated, sometimes that's unit prices that we can go in and back down. But as the ultimate tool, we always have the ability to end a contract with or without clause at our discretion. So we write that into nearly every construction contract we'll issue. So,
because that is a confusing point to a lot of people. We still have not 100% firmed up what that building's going to be.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So we really try to make sure that language protects the county. Should we make a change or go a different direction, all the way up to just simply walking away from it. So. My team has worked with XL Energy and Stearns Electric through a company called Wilden on a third-party design assistance program. There's some grant dollars out there that pays the architect, it pays the contractor, it pays XL and Stearns to basically do a review of our project from an energy efficiency standpoint, provides sort of packaged recommendations to the county for things that we could do that might cost some money now and have a payback over time in utility savings, maintenance, long-term maintenance savings, or even rebates, direct rebates back from XL or Stearns based on equipment. We've received the final report for that study, and it boiled down to really 4 different I'll call them packages, if you will. They always start with what's code baseline. That's package number 1. If you did just what code requires, this is what we estimate for equipment cost, for long-term maintenance, and for utility costs over a period of time. The second package is as the building is designed, and then ours had 2 other packages that showed some modest potential savings going in 2 different directions. One moving towards an air source heating system, which a heat pump system, or more, I guess you could call it geothermal, if you will. And the other was going to a fully electric heating and cooling boiler system. I was happy to find out that our building, as designed, performed very well against either of those other 2 options. And it was the opinion of our team that the upfront cost for some of the air source heat pumps or the electric boilers didn't outweigh the modest year-over-year savings we might see with those equipment. So our recommendation is to stay as designed on those systems. The last item on my list for you, worked with, as you know, Elk Creek Consulting is working with our construction manager at this time, looking at the design portion of the jail. Chris Toma, the owner of Elk Creek Consulting, is a former jail administrator in Chisago County and spent several years at the state of Minnesota in the Department of Corrections. Was actually our facility inspector here in Stearns for some time, and really had a hand in writing the rules that we're currently operating under, and has input on those rules that are coming down the pike here from the state. On top of that design consulting, he also does transition consulting and policy building and training building for new facilities. So he provided Captain Mark and I a presentation on what kind of services he could provide to the county, his expertise, how that might be able to offset some of our internal staff costs, or basically replace an FTE that we might otherwise have to assign to that, those tasks. And we've asked him to put together a little more focused presentation on those things that we think could benefit our project here at the county, and plan to bring that here to the board again, probably in that August-September timeline for your review. But he's very sharp at what he does, and I think with a facility this big, this complicated, and this many moving parts, having that kind of real-world expertise is going to be pretty helpful. So that's the project in a nutshell, and I'll take any questions you might have.
Thank you for the report, Kevin. And, again, for the public, this is ongoing. You give us written reports very regularly. We definitely have our thumb on this. And so that's been very helpful for us, or at least for me, to keep abreast on what's going on. You didn't say anything about the annexation issue. How's that going, or is that more Mike?
Mr. Chair, I guess I can help answer that. Last correspondence I had was, well, we have signed annexation petition from one of the property owners. The second one, I just had an email, and they were saying they're gonna sign those. So we don't have them in hand yet unless something happened this morning that I don't know about, but, so I'm still confident we're gonna get that. And the other thing I was gonna say is that you'll see the detailed design development and the costs. We're planning on doing that at the end of July. Your July 29th meeting, I think, is still the schedule. And probably, I would guess we'll do that in a work session, I would think. I guess we haven't really talked too much about that. And then the next meeting in August, which would be August 12th, then is when you would be asked to take some actions to approve the new budget or the updated budget, and maybe even advance into the bid document stage. So you will see this in much more detail in your July and August agendas.
Okay. And I assume, Randy, the sales tax collection, that's all going well?
It's going fine, yes. We have a fiscal advisor. At some point, we'll bring that person to the board and talk about some of those items.
Okay. Commissioner Notch?
Oh, appreciate the update.
Commissioner Clark?
Same.
Okay. Well, nothing else. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Keep up the good work.
Will do.
No action required there. The next, last item would be issues by commissioners. Commissioner Clark?
Just a few things. I already brought up the presentation from the Human Services Advisory Board that I do think would be great for this board. A few items, I know I was thinking about it during our moment of silence. Do you want to just take a moment to, I think it's, while we all get through every first meeting since the tragedy that happened with the shooting, it's just important to acknowledge and how people who are deeply dealing with this throughout our state. You might have seen that it's been put out there that Speaker Miranda Hortman and her husband, Mark, and their dog will lie in state on Friday. So for people who are interested, a relevant issue, and Randy and I got a chance to talk just at least briefly, is for all public officials, and probably broader, the issues about how people find out where you are, when you are. It's just gotten to be a scarier place. And Commissioner Bertram, you brought up in another meeting, just feeling so depressed. There's just so many emotions here. So I want to acknowledge how that impacts our state in a place that we consider to be a safe place in general. And then for just a couple other things, one, the storm that came through last week, I was astounded even in St. Cloud how many trees in a narrow place, huge trees were knocked down, and thankful for our coordination, our emergency services with so many jurisdictions, whether you're in the western part or the eastern part. Those coordination really make a difference for the safety of our residents. And then I'm hoping not to use the time here now, but just if we could get a brief update on at our next meeting about what you're seeing, the impacts of the legislation. I mean, we obviously talked about a lot of the proposals that would have made us raise property taxes went away, but it would be great to have a better idea for our public to have some idea about what some of that means, to the extent you're able. Oh, lastly, CJCC this morning, we had a presentation on Ignite and the work that both the jail staff, the sheriff's department, and coordinated with a number of other services. It's really good to see how that's moving forward, and hope too we can get a brief presentation at some point for the rest of our board and the public. And that's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Notch?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I could have asked this separately, but I thought, well, this might be a good thing to have at the meeting. Going through the accounts payable, when I noticed there were a couple of different attorneys ones, but When there's one for like public defenders, like I think Bradshaw and Bryant, we paid, what do we pay public defenders for? Maybe you don't know, but.
I think there are a lot of times a CHIPS case, if I believe so.
Yeah, because there was a CHIPS one too for.
We contract with those at a certain rate, so I can't tell you off the top of my head what those rates are, but a few years ago, we redid all those agreements too, but.
Because I was associated, you got a county attorney, so, and then it seems like you go against
They do.
public defender.
That's exactly right.
So it's like,
Yes.
all of a sudden you see that we paid a public defender,
In those cases, we do, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
But that's on, not going to a trial type thing, that's
No, some of
provided.
it is going to a
Oh, it
trial.
is?
Could be,
Yeah. So it could be like a reimbursement, or?
We don't get
It
reimbursed.
just seems
We're
odd
paying
odd that we would pay a public defender, if they're defending against us.
Yeah, and the county, Janelle can
okay.
clarify
Here
this
we go.
for us a little better.
Good morning, Commissioners. We are required by state law to pay the public defenders on CHIPS cases. There's a couple different areas also in
And
mental
CHIPS are
health
child
commitments.
protection, right?
Yep. And also in mental health commitments, there's a couple categories. We can get you something brief and written on that, on what's required. And we did just revisit, so to make
2 or 3
sure
years
that
ago, I think, yeah.
the prices that are paid are fair and consistent with other neighbors. We can certainly get you a brief submission on that, no problem.
Okay, thanks. That clarifies that.
That was Janelle Kendall, our county attorney, for the record. Anything else, Steve?
Yeah, so this is kind of going off topic a little bit, but yesterday we had the Ag and Rural Affairs Committee meeting, and one of the NACO resolutions they were bringing forward was in regards to animal care. Basically, the heading was enhancing county capacity for animal well-being infrastructure and services. I don't ever hear we have issue. I'm thinking this maybe is more of a larger metro counties. One of their priorities is like having issues with subsidizing veterinarians and paying for spade and neutering animals. And I was kind of taken aback because, we don't even really talk about Tri-County Humane Society or, it seems like it's taken care of, but apparently in other parts of the country, these.
Don't give the state any idea.
No,
Make us do that.
I was just
for that
floored
too.
when I even seen it as a proposed resolution to bring forward. It's like,
We don't anymore, but
I
yeah.
think we pretty much, everybody just takes care, the cities take care of it, everybody kind of takes care of it, but I'll just see where that goes in the future, but. And then we have Tri-County Solid Waste meeting Thursday morning, and then the Parks meeting tomorrow night in Cold Spring, Wakefield Township. correct?
Wakefield Township Hall.
That was all I had. Thank you.
We talked about the invoices yesterday in CASM, 54 pages. Again, for the public, they don't I shouldn't say they don't understand. I don't know that they know that we get all the invoices every board meeting, and we all ask our questions in different ways or whatever, but it just continues to amaze me what we're involved in, what we're paying for. When you talked about what you did, Commissioner Notch, but 54 pages, 59 million. Of course, the biggest one was 41 million to pay the school districts their share of the property taxes, but and then 2 of them were road contractors, 1.5 million each, and about 800,000 for the IRS. I mean, so when you go through, the one that still boggles me the most is the burials. And again, I did not know that we pay for that many burials. And so what we all do is something. I mean, and a lot of it's mandated, but it is what it is. The sheriff gave a sanctuary update to you with us, Mike. You want to just real quickly, he couldn't be here today, so you want to just quickly share what he shared?
Sheriff Sauk is at the National Sheriff's Association Conference, so he may very well be hearing about this at this time, but he just says that, there's no list today. He actually says there's been no communication with our office about any criteria or what we might have done to get on the list, no remedies, because we asked for that. And actually, I was interested in one line he said here is that DHS has denied that a list exists or that they produced one. Anyway.
But the fact is,
as we all know, the Sheriff's Department has done nothing that would indicate that he should be on such a list. The county board has done nothing that to take any type of action or done anything that would seem to put us on such a list. So it remains as it was a couple of weeks ago, taken down.
And the fact is, we are not a sanctuary county. The board has not approved a sanctuary county status, so that's just the fact. And then the shotgun rifle zone issue, Commissioner Notch brought up yesterday. At some point, it sounds like July 8th, we'll have a conversation on that. Other than that, I think that's it. Everybody have a happy 4th. We won't meet until after that, so meeting adjourned.